welcome back. This is Michelle from Michelle's Empty Nest, and today I'm going to move on to prompts 19 and 20, or day 19 and 20, story 19 and 20, whichever way you want to refer to it, in my October Daily 2021 album. I know by the time this goes up, October will be over and we will be in November. I will also be working on my Thankful 30 by the time you see this, so there may be some videos that are kind of in October and November, back and forth for a few days, but I'm not giving up on this. I'm going to keep going. Vacation and a lot of doctor's appointments and a couple of procedures kind of got me behind, but I'm determined to finish my album. Also, if you hear my printer going in the background, I'm sorry. I'm printing a 131-page document right now, a product that's 131 pages, and I didn't have time to wait for it to finish printing before I wanted to get started filming this. So hopefully it's not too distracting. But we're going to go ahead and get to the voiceover so you won't be able to hear it anyway. So I'm going to put you on fast forward and we'll get this done. So let's do it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get everything set up to get started on Leaves, which is prompt 19 or story 19. I had intended to be able to use some photos from our trip to North Carolina a few weeks ago when I did this prompt in my list. And we were supposed to be there at about peak time in the season, according to all the little charts. But it turns out the weather was a little too warm for a few weeks right before that, and so we missed peak season. And while we saw some beautiful scenery, there just was not a huge amount of color in one place. So I ended up just taking some photos out in front of our house just a couple of days ago after we had had finally a little bit of cooler weather, kind of down in the 50s and 60s during the day. And that's a little cooler down here in the south. So I was adhering this picture down and I forgot that I needed to actually adhere it all the way to the edges for the photo. So that's what I'm going back now, is doing that. And then for the orange paper that I backed it with for matte, I just put like a few strips in the center of the adhesive so I could take it over to my sewing machine. And I had a teal color thread that was pretty much right on for the leaves in that background paper, the leaf paper. And that is also what I color picked to do the actual words in the title. And that orange paper was also from the collection. I think it was all from Tracy Reed's October Mood, but I will double check. And all of that is always linked below. And then I just used my double-sided adhesive from scrapbook.com, and I put a strip on either side of this the stitching just to double check to make sure it's going to stick really well for now. And then in the long run, I just feel like maybe it will also kind of help protect the stitching and keep it from coming loose if there's more adhesive near it. And then I just use my Teflon bone folder to go and kind of make sure I've pushed that tape down really well there at the very edge where it's rounding over in that seam. And you've also seen me, I trim away a little bit. I go off to the side and trim because, as I've mentioned, in these books that are sewn together, they start to have that bulge in the middle. And so what started out as a 7.5-inch page, you really can't do as a 7.5-inch page once you get this much bulk in there. So I'm constantly having to kind of move that down. If you hear my dogs barking, I'm sorry. They're a couple of rooms away from me, but you may be able to hear them. And then I love this photo. I think it just turned out so good. I was kind of proud of myself for how nicely it turned out. I did get some new non-stick scissors. I've been struggling with those little pink scissors that you've been seeing me use. They were my, sticky cutting scissors. I ordered this pair off of Amazon. They were about $12, so not too bad. But they are so much sharper, and they're, obviously not sticking to every little piece of paper that I'm trying to trim that has that score tape behind it, like those pink scissors that were probably like a $2 pair of scissors from a few years ago. So happy I picked those up. They're a good non-stick titanium. And then I'm coming in with my We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper. I put some powder tool down in that thing because it keeps getting gummed up no matter what I do, because there is score tape on these corners as I'm cutting them off. And again, I always do use the 1/2 inch side of that on these Heidi Swapp Storyline Chapters albums in this regular size. Had a little bit of sticky there along the edge where I had trimmed off, and so I just ran that old powder tool right along it again. Now, for this one, Favorite Quotes About Autumn, I was just going to use the one on the right. I'm so glad I live in a world where there were Octobers. That is from Anne of Green Gables. But there were some other quotes in one of these digital collections, and I picked out two that I liked, and I thought, well, I'll just include all three. So the piece on the right was a 3x4 card, or a 4x6, one or the other, and I just increased the size in Photoshop. And you'll see I print a second one, and I fussy cut out the wreath part up there on the corner because I wanted to give it a little bit more dimension, since there's no photos, it's just all paper here. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Now, on this paper, I forgot to delete off the cards when I was building this up in Photoshop. So I just printed them again and trimmed them out. And then I adhered those really well to this teal paper with the pluses on it. And then I'm just putting a few strips of adhesive down the middle of that. I almost put it in the wrong place there, so that I can take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to go around all four sides of each rectangle in white thread for those, just to give them a little bit more texture. I'm not doing as much distressing because this has gotten pretty chunky, but I've told you before, I don't really mind the chunk, so I'm not too concerned about it, but I am just trying to be a little bit more aware. So plenty of tape there, since this one has a lot of stitching on it. And then also this side, this left side, it was just a plain, or not plain, but it was a paper that matched the background of the card, is what I'm trying to say. So I decided just to use that paper, and that way, it was definitely a cohesive spread because it was the same background on both sides. And then I used the little wood grain frame to pick the color for the rectangle that says Favorite Quotes About Autumn, and then just the swirly florally parts, I picked that whitish color to do the title in. And I'm really enjoying doing that and having all of that being very matched and cohesive. So more score tape, peeling that off with my little awl, because that helps me be able to do it much quicker and not have to fight with it so much. And then I've already trimmed this one down some too, to make up for that little bulk there in the middle. And I come back in, and I think this time oh, these are my nice scissors because there was no adhesive down there. So I don't mind using my nice ones. And then I'm going to come back in with my corner rounder there and get those trimmed up. And for this now, I start off putting roller adhesive, the Kokuyo roller adhesive I get from Amazon that I love. I decided to go over with my new Barely Arts, yeah, Barely Arts glue that would give me a little bit more time to make sure I had it in the place I wanted it to be. It's called Barely Arts Precision Craft Glue. I went and grabbed the bottle. Using my Teflon bone folder just to spread that glue out so it gets a good hold, and everything isn't going to have, hopefully, like those little bumpy raised places where the glue line dries. Going back in right on the four corners and just putting a little bit of extra adhesive down there to make sure those stay down. And then I'm going to grab my favorite foam dots, or foam squares. They are from Scrapbook Adhesives. And I ripped this leaf off. Spoiler alert, there it goes. But You can't really tell. I'm going to turn the camera off and finish up because it took me just a minute to go around everything. But I'm just putting one little foam square. It's very subtle because it's a very thin foam square. I use the thinnest that I have. And I'm just putting one under each leaf, and it just gives it a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of a texture that I absolutely love. Then I'm going to come in with my numbers that I've used throughout, run them through my Xyron machine, and then I will find two circle labels from that Reset Girl sticker pile there that I've had for several years. Find some that work. I ended up using this one with the flowery leafy parts in the middle. I thought that worked pretty well with this photo. And then I'll do a light blue one to pull in the blue card on the next page. And that finishes me up. So I will have close-ups at the end and on Instagram, and I will be back to talk to you here in just a second, guys. Thank you. Okay, guys, that's where I am going to call these 2 pages done, or actually 4 pages. Both of these were double page spreads. So I really, really love this photo. It is this tree, just from a little bit different angle. It's on the same day, but I think because I was looking a little bit different direction, you could see the blue, whereas looking from this direction, it was more wherever the sun was causing the sky to look a little lighter, but it's the same tree, same day. And these were printed on the luster paper that I mentioned. I had talked about going from this the Canon glossy +2 or 2+, whichever one it is that I've always used. I had switched to a semi-gloss for this album to help with fingerprints and scratches and glue residue, since it is outside of any kind of pocket. But then I realized there was one even further down, which is luster, and it is right between a semi-gloss and a matte. And you know, I use the matte photo paper to do all my printables, and that's why they look all nice and crisp and vibrant and much more professional and closer to what you would get, you know, if you actually ordered a scrapbooking kit that was printed for you. So I love the paper. I think it's really going to help with the fingerprints and things like that. And by the way, that 131 page document is still printing. So if you hear the printer, I'm sorry. And then for my favorite quotes about autumn, this one is my all-time favorite, from Anne of Green Gables. I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers. These 2 quotes, though, I really liked, and they were also in the Tracy Reed October Mood collection, the digital kit that I've been using. And by the way, remember, all the digital kits I've used, all the products that I use on a regular basis are always linked down below in the description box. And so I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and include these 2. One of them is by Lorelai Gilmore. I've never seen the Gilmore Girls, but it's on my watch list. And this one is from Alexander Smith. And so there'll be close-ups at the end as well as over on Instagram if you want to see those in a little more detail. So I'm going to end the video here, and I appreciate you stopping by today so much. It means more to me than you will ever know. If you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to give me a thumbs up down below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that and becoming a part of my little YouTube family. I'd also love for you to follow me over on Instagram, where I share a lot of things, some inspirational things, some important things about mental health and my stories, just kind of some lighthearted, some more serious, but a lot of things that never make it over here onto YouTube. Oh, and I did pop this up, by the way. I guess you saw that. Very thin pads, but I wanted it to be to have a little bit of dimension to it. It's very subtle, but I like how it turned out. So anyway, until I see you in the next video, take care of yourself and do something good for yourself. And I hope you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.